Welcome, welcome. My name is Aoife, and I am a mind body coach. So I am mostly helping sensitive women to learn these tools that can help you to break free from chronic pain, chronic illness, anxiety, and depression. I had my own journey of 30 years, 3 decades of many, many rabbit holes and no answers. And I came to a very desperate place in my life. But thankfully, that place brought me to the mind-body connection, which is what we're here to talk about today and share with you this crazy, beautiful, simple wisdom that can really help you to hopefully have a breakthrough with your own symptoms. So today I'm super excited. We have Dr. Rita Gupta. And so Dr. Rita is an integrative family physician, expert in pain reprocessing therapy, trained in emotional awareness and expression therapy, and a mindful teacher and mentor. And Dr. Rita, guides individuals with chronic conditions and pain towards feeling better. So thank you so much for being here, Rita. Is there anything else you want to add to that intro?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. Such an honor to be here and sit with you and talk about this important topic. Um, but no, thank you. You were so kind in that intro. I think you covered all my expertise there, but I'm happy to share a little bit about my journey as well as it comes up in our conversation.
Yeah, that's because the most relatable and I guess yeah, just one of the most important things for most people that I have on this channel is that we've had our own journey. And I think that's the medicine that helped me is hearing someone else like me because I felt so desperately isolated for so long. I felt so different and so isolated. So just that connection and so yeah, so I'm really excited to hear your story. If you would like to share with us how you came to be in the mind body world or how you came to be connected to this mind body way.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And sometimes it's one of those things that when you look back, you see your story, but when you're living it, it's kind of hard to know what's happening. You're just being pulled in a lot of different directions, you feel like. But for me, I think I've always understood the mind-body connection to some degree when I look back on my childhood, just, being born to immigrant parents from India. And then I was born and raised in the United States, as the first generation. So a lot of principles that I grew up with, I didn't understand how they related the mind and body. I didn't have the words for it, but with my training, I realized that there were some Ayurvedic principles, which were really, fundamentally like ingrained in us and how we were brought up in terms of our diet and our rituals and our practices. And now I realize why they had so much wisdom in them. So a lot of these things are simple and they're not anything new. Actually, a lot of ancient wisdoms really understood about the mind-body connection, but traditional medicine and the Western model, which is really focused on acute illness and sick care, has forgotten the preventative aspect, which I think shifting the healthcare paradigm to the mind-body connection is really preventative medicine at its core because it's the whole person. For me, I was trained in the traditional model, and I always was interested in integrative medicine, where I did my fellowship. Training is in Arizona at the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine. So I've always been eyeing that program because I did my residency in Phoenix and at the Mayo Clinic, Arizona. And the fellowship is in Tucson. So I had this connection from my upbringing and also from in my training that I wanted to do this. But then in 2020, I got the opportunity to get fellowship trained in integrative medicine. And really, I felt it was a missing piece in my practice because I had so many patients where I was seeing a pattern of illness and pain. And, I was ordering all the diagnostics and labs, and they were not getting the answers they deserved. They were going from specialist to specialist. And medicine, as you know, has gotten so siloed. So we really have disconnected, everything that's happening is happening real time together, where you can't separate, like, nephrology and gastroenterology and cardiology. The body is functioning in a dynamic process. So I think I saw that I needed more tools and a formal training. And that's where I got into mind body medicine. And I did a 2-year fellowship in integrative medicine, which mind body medicine is really the foundation of integrative medicine. And and then, I really everything kind of just clicked from there. I mean, I found pain reprocessing therapy, emotional awareness and expression therapy, and I really feel that a lot of our chronic pain, chronic illness has, a lot of that strong emotional component. Dr. John Sarno was one of the pioneers of this, and he really felt like unexpressed, repressed emotion was a big driver to pain. And I believe that too.
So I got shivers all over my body when you were describing how all parts of our body, how we're a dynamic system. Because when I was a child, I had all these different symptoms. I actually had, they call it pyrexia of unknown origin, where I had fevers, recurring fevers for no apparent reason. And I had stomach issues, and I had also had like really intense cold sores. I had all these different symptoms. And then I went throughout my life and I collected more symptoms. And then like carpal tunnel, period pain, um, acne, all these different things. And so I had 30 years, but every time I had a symptom, it was treated like a separate thing. It was a separate thing. And this was crazy because I was the burden I was carrying with all these, and then the anxiety that was the psychiatric problem and emotional problem and everything. So I had hundreds of apparently separate issues that how do you even take that on? Like, how do you even, and then you're taking like maybe some herbs, because I also actually studied holistic therapy and my parents were always really open-minded. I grew up as an immigrant in London, and we were in a very vibrant community of different kinds of thinking from around the world in East London. When I first found the mind-body connection, that single piece of information that you just described was my biggest breakthrough. I realized I didn't have 100 different issues that needed different potions and different specialists and different, whatever treatments. I had one problem, and that was my nervous system that was connected to all these different symptoms. So that took a massive weight off my shoulders, and it finally gave me some focus rather than just kind of being so many different rabbit holes, so many different opinions and consultants and different people and healers and potions.
Yeah, you've said that so beautifully. And it is like a whole weight is lifted off, because it's not, that we're these little things, it's all connected and it's all happening in our brain. It's one place where all these symptoms are manifesting from.
Exactly. And then the other thing that you said that I know that you're trained in this emotional expression and emotional awareness. And even though this was hinted at over the years, I remember I had used to have aches and pains in my arms and legs as a child, and I would get the fevers and the symptoms. And I remember one doctor did say that I should do get a pillow and punch it. So it was kind of hinted at. But as I got older, I did get involved in like I was doing a lot of therapy, and I was doing a lot of meditation. So I was like I was in that world. And so when people suggested to me at that point that there might be an emotional connection, I was really defensive
Yeah.
because I felt like I had done a lot, like more than most people I knew. And so I felt very defensive when people said that. But something clicked in me. Um, and for some reason, I opened it and I realized basically that the symptoms, a lot of emotional stuff I couldn't access because it was being guarded by the symptoms. So it was like once it clicked, something clicked about the symptoms, that was when the defenses actually came down, and I just was really open to that deeper emotional side.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I mean, the symptoms are there to protect you, and the defenses are things that you've learned throughout your life that have been there for your survival. And so sometimes doing this work has a lot of resistance because the brain's job is to keep you alive and to keep you, surviving. So it doesn't understand that you don't have those threats anymore. So the defensives don't need to be so high. So it is a little counterintuitive sometimes, but doing this work is really confronting the pain in a gentle, loving way, but it is turning towards the discomfort. And our world, we don't want to feel discomfort. We don't want to feel pain. We don't want to feel it's always get rid of this quick fix. And it's not a blame thing. It's just the way we're wired. And so that's why it can be counterintuitive to do this work, and there could be some resistance because our brain wants to maintain a neutral internal state, like the homeostasis. It wants to create the familiar state. So you can do all the things, the exercises, the techniques, and for a while, but then after a while, you lose momentum, and then it's just you go back to the default mode because the brain is in that, window. But it just takes time and consistency. And then, like you said, it just opens up. And it's such a weight off, it's such a relief.
Yeah, it is. It's such a relief. So, well, I mean, it's a relief, but it's also a bit, it's also without
Yes.
scaring anyone. It can be also really confronting, like the feeling some of these emotions or having conversations that arise. So I can share with you that but before the mind body, I had done so much like psychological and emotional work. Then I started to work on my symptoms in a mind body way. And it was like for me, this higher wisdom started to come through me, like almost as if I'm just like channeling this new level of wisdom because without having to go to like talk in depth about particular issues I was having, it was like I would suddenly find myself having a direct conversation with someone that in a way that I had not done before. It was like through using the mind body tools, I was giving myself a higher level of love and respect, and that higher level of love and respect started to also be in my voice and interactions with people. Um, so that also scared me. It also scared me. I started to say no to things that I usually would never said no to, and I would be terrified. And yes, and I have to be honest that I am so committed to this mind body journey that it continues to be like that, and I continue to meet myself and um, change. And it is such a relief. And I always feel so much lighter on the other side of it. But there's like this kind of thing you have to move through. You must talk a lot about that in your emotional expression therapy.
Yeah, I mean, the way you describe it though is exactly how it is. It's like it's not this, relief and then you're done. It's just this constant ebb and flow. But I think what you have tapped into in your work is your intuitive self. And I think we all have that intuitive self, but it gets blocked. And when you can connect with that, and then it reflects in your relationships with others because you're not in that old narrative, that old story belief system, because you're able to connect with your intuition. And that's dynamically changing as you're evolving. And it's not like it's this like trajectory of, getting better and better. It's just life. It's the human condition. It's like there's no low point or high point. It just is, and there's no judgment around that. So you said that so beautifully, and it's amazing when we get that internal resource, because then we're not dependent on some external gadget, or you know we don't need to like buy into the capitalistic world that we need X, Y, and Z to be whole. We actually have everything we need to be whole. But, we just have teachers and these wisdoms that we learn along the way, which, to me is what true medicine really is. It's like I cannot, as a physician, make heal somebody. They heal themselves, but I give them, maybe some guidance and wisdom, but not forever either. That's the other thing. We don't need that. So it's beautiful. I mean, that's what I love about mind body medicine, is really about our own innate healing capacity, and it's guided through our own intuition.
I love that so much. And it's true what we just get these blocks, like you said, to
Mhm.
trusting ourselves.
Yes.
Um, and then we're looking for um, someone to tell us what to do that will make us better, or to tell
Yeah.
us what to take that will make us better. And it's so much harder to actually lean in and start to learn to trust yourself. It's going to feel kind of scarier, but I think it gets to a point where you're just like there's nowhere else to go. There's no other kind of, like you said, gadget or person who can make me believe, that it's something within you is just calling you in. Your soul, your intuition is like, come home, come to me.
Mhm.
Um, which is, like you said, it's such a beautiful part of the journey. And um, I also love what you said about like there's no like judgment anymore, and not no like good or bad, because I've been sharing on social media and with my clients also that 2024 for me was just so hard. Like it was just a really challenging year. And like we were sharing just before we got on this call, there's a heaviness in the world right now. And I was speaking with friends and they're feeling the same, feeling tearful and feeling, there's different things happening, and where you are, the fires are close to you. But I would never say 2024 was a bad year. It's like there's not a bad moment, but there is really deeply tender and deeply challenging and heavy times. But for me, it's not been bad. It's been deeply like a time of growth and integration, and some serious change that had to happen within me and around me. And I also value so much that how I can feel.
Yeah.
Like I just like real as I continue to use this like model, the mind body medicine model, I maybe feel more than I have before. And I feel far more sensitive even, and less able to hide myself and my vulnerabilities. I feel way more exposed than ever before, and all these things. But and I feel raw, but it feels so much. It feels good in a way, or it feels, real. Um, I just really value that.
Yeah. I think being human is to be feel and to be real and to be our authentic selves. But we get caught up into the mass of our world and how we're supposed to portray ourselves, like our vulnerabilities, like you said. And it and I think then that's when we feel stuck, because we're not a true expression of who we are, because we're just we're meant to feel, we're meant to be connected. And with the collective suffering out there, it is really hard. I mean, a lot of this work is not just about us as individuals, because when we are in alignment, we're sending that out to others and we're helping the collective healing as well. Because as one individual, we are all connected and we heal in community and we suffer in community. And I think that's part of a lot of the isolation we feel when we have chronic illness and pain, or, anxiety, depression, is that isolation. We're kind of, taken away from the whole, as if we're broken or, defective in some way. But we all need one another. And I look at this work as almost doing my part for the generational trauma and the future generations, because how can I make my contribution? I can do it by being living in alignment with myself, not as a pressure or a responsibility, but as a true passion and love for others. You know, I don't know if that came across exactly, but there's so much emotion in there too that sometimes we don't want to get too emotional in these talks, but it can get
No,
that way.
definitely. No, I love everything that you shared, and I feel the same. Me and my housemates, we were writing our wishes for the year, and I said I was my peace. I'm always wishing more inner peace. And he said, "What about world peace?" And I said, "No, world peace starts with each one of us and our inner peace." I keep praying. I keep, praying and meditating and working on my and growing my own inner peace. And I know that ripples out. And I feel like that's the greatest contribution that I can make when I do see and feel the world's suffering.
Yeah.
So like you said, it's not just about our own healing. And like you touched on, that the isolation that we feel when we're in the the throes of chronic pain and chronic illness. I've never felt such isolation and such loneliness, and having been misunderstood for so long. And just I think just listening to these stories and these talks can start to for someone listening, can start to bring that feeling of connection back, which is just
Yeah.
a huge start and step towards healing.
Yeah, definitely. Because it is so isolating when you're in pain, because I mean, pain is very, it's a danger. It's a threat. And if we're not connected to somebody or someone where we can feel safe, it's going to even amplify the pain too.
Definitely. And it affects your relationships, right? Everyone around you and your partners or your family, they don't understand it and they want to help, but then you can feel like a burden, and then maybe you feel like you need to pretend that you're better than you are because you don't want to, you manage the people around you, but then that puts pressure on yourself and brings you further away from feeling like your authentic self. It's just like it can just feel like such a burden. And like you were talking about, I love using the word feeling aligned with yourself. It's just a whole big mess of misalignment, right? And
Mhm.
so your healing journey is like, I heard one person, Steve Ozanic, he wrote the book, The Great Pain Deception, and he said it was one aha moment at a time. And it
Mhm.
can just be like one moment of alignment at a time. And they're the
That's
medicine.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly, you worded it so or referenced it so well, because I do feel alignment, like that dynamic windy road we talked about. It's just that one moment. And sometimes it is really that one moment of awareness that can just change everything. Because
Definitely.
when we're in pain, and it's so hard to see in the periphery, because our vision, we cannot see the options. And I remember even in my own journey of understanding the mind body connection, and with my own health issues and family health issues, you really don't have the capacity to see more options. It's just because of the wiring of the survival mechanism is just to like hone in on what's the predator, what's the danger. Let me just put all my resources to solving or attending to that need and not, you don't have any other resources available. I mean, the parasympathetic nervous system is totally shut down at that point.
Definitely. It's like the saying, you can't see the woods for the trees. You're completely shut down. Yeah. And so it is like when I notice my clients just say the symptoms are still very loud for them, but they're starting to notice other things around them in their life, starting to reconnect with people or places or just starting to see more. I know things are shifting for them, even though, and I know many of the doctors say this as well, that the symptoms can often be the last thing to let go. It's often when you're having those more aligned moments and more aligned experiences. Um, and then that gets more of your attention. Just
Mhm.
naturally they grow and the symptoms can then let go. But I also like to say to people that like those symptoms, like you said at the beginning, our brain is trying to protect us, and those symptoms can really have very good reasons that they got there in the first place. And so when people feel frustrated with their symptoms taking a long time, maybe to shift, I like to think of like there's this little kid in there that's like just holding on and just like scared to let go, just doesn't know yet. And if you're like shouting at it or giving out to it, like just let go, it's just like gonna hold on tighter. And it's a hard little wiggle to get into, but just takes a few little tweaks. But yeah, that symptom can let go.
Yeah, I love how you talked about that child. Like, I like parts work too, just or inner child work, just to kind of meet our younger selves and see what we need as, as the loving older or, the loving adult to the inner child, and sometimes repairing that relationship. And that can be helpful for the trust issue too, because a lot of times we have failed ourselves. So why would we trust ourselves? you know? So it's understandable. But yeah, I loved how you worded everything about this journey, and it is so beautiful when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you're not thinking about is your pain, or how am I going to manage this day because of my pain, or you know what I mean? You know that shift when it happens, you can feel it. And it's just, you may notice what someone really said, like maybe you're present, but you didn't really hear them fully, or you noticed their smile, or you noticed, a bird chirping. I mean, it can be the littlest thing and it can make the huge difference. Just there's a whole world out there for us to experience.
And you know what? It is the littlest things when I speak to people who are looking for help and I ask them what they want or their goals are. It is those little things. They say they just want to feel present with their partner. They just want to spend time with their kids. They just want to feel the sun on their skin. They just want to read a book. Um, and yeah, I know myself when in 2017, I was in such a desperate place. I was crying before I opened my eyes in the morning. And my first thoughts were like, I don't want to live, this is unbearable. So I
Yeah.
really know that place. I just feel so fortunate to have yeah found this work, and to Dr. Sarno and to all of you and all of the doctors who are contributing this wisdom to the medical world. And so do you have any particular tools or insights from your from the amazing combination of work that you do for like emotional expression, or is there anything that sticks out to you that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I first want to say thank you for doing this work, because you having had that experience and you're bringing that to others is just so wonderful and amazing. And that's what's making this world a better place. So thank you for that and being vulnerable to even share your story. Um, but for me, I think the tools that I found, it's really understanding ourselves, so awareness. So really a lot of about it is the mindfulness a piece because mindfulness is really about the awareness and self-compassion, looking at the pain gently and realizing that pain is part of the human condition, and we're not broken and we don't have to identify with our pain. And also looking at what we might need, what can we say to ourselves? How can we be gentler with ourselves, just as like we want to be with our children or a spouse or a best friend or and then giving ourselves a message of safety, whatever that may look like for us, a kind word or maybe even a hug, a self hug, you know, can be helpful. It really, releases those feel good chemicals like oxytocin. Um, but for the emotional awareness and expression therapy, it really is looking at the emotions, the rage, the anger, which are very justified, and I think a lot of times, especially, I can speak as a minority woman. I didn't want to express those emotions. I felt like I was not allowed to, and I was scared of them. I was scared of anger. But anger is very healthy. I mean, it's a way that we protect ourselves, and it should be in a safe environment, addressed. And, Dr. Sarno probably felt we were all dormant volcanoes. We had this repressed rage that needed to kind of come up and out. So having that training, I think, has been really, really helpful because I don't fully disagree with, expressing your anger through the pillow technique, but I think it's more effective to really understand that anger because it is fully justified. And then in a safe way, sometimes imaginal, or with a therapist or with, a coach, you can maybe talk to that anger and let it come out because it needs to come out so it doesn't get stored in the body. Dr. Russell Van Volk has that the body keeps score, which sometimes that takes energy when all those emotions get stuck in the body. It's kind of my freezer analogy. A mentor gave me this where, we keep putting things in the freezer, but eventually it gets overloaded, and then electricity has to keep the freezer going, and then the freezer breaks down. So those things are not meant to be, we're not meant to store more than our capacity. And I think that it's called EAET. I think doing it with a trained professional or coach can really be effective. And then once you learn the tools, you can do it on yourself, you know. And then you can have those authentic relationships with people because you're not holding that resentment and anger. Um, Towards them, and because people can feel it, right? It's all energy. We know when we give our spouse or partner that look, and we may be saying one thing, but our body language and our tone of voice and is, giving us a different example.
Thank you. I love everything you shared. And just so everyone knows, I mean, I probably did punch a pillow a few times, but it wasn't something that worked for me, that thing. And I have to even say, like, going in and looking for the anger and trying to dig it out also didn't necessarily work for me. But just over time, like that alignment, like giving myself moments of alignment and moments of like love. It sounds too simple to be true, but that's when I started that dormant volcano. Because in the past, I would push everything down. It wasn't safe for me to be authentic. And then I would explode and I would fall out with someone. I would have a violent episode, like, and then I would retreat and feel so guilty and so shameful. And so I was scared of my own anger. But just for me over the time, and then it started to kind of come out in more healthy ways. It would still rattle me when it came out. I would still feel rattled the sound of my own authenticity or my own raw emotion. And just over time, I'm getting more and more used to my own authentic emotions and vulnerability. But it's really just over time. And I remember one of Anna Holtzman, one of my mind body friends, I was talking to her after I'd maybe expressed myself to someone authentically, and I was like, I'm feeling so shook afterwards. And she had some metaphor of like opening a champagne bottle or something. It's going to be messy, it's going to be chaotic. It's not going to
Yeah.
be like smooth, but when you have the tools to center yourself and soothe yourself again, you can relearn a way of being. So you don't have to stock everything up in the freezer, like you said.
Yeah, I love how you said that. And I think the EAET makes it less messy because when you learn the tools and you're able to, in a safe way, of course, you're not going to do this like in real life, it's all in imagination. But if you really can authentically express your anger, maybe it's toward a situation or a person, and realize that your anger is justified, and then that way, when you feel like maybe that sense of, sadness then because you really do care about the person, or maybe there is some situation that you feel very close to, then you can really go into the self-compassion piece because then you can really see their situation and their victimness and the whole thing. And then you realize we're all victims in a certain way. So it's justifying the emotion. So yeah, it can get messy, but I think when you do this work, it really does make it less messy because you're not like getting into that situation with your friend where you're like been pushing, 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 and then one day you just do burst. And there's nothing wrong with that either, but a lot of us don't want to get into that reactive mode because then we may say things and we're not fully ourselves either. I don't think that's the full authentic expression. There's a lot of anger in there.
Definitely. And what I want to say actually is it's messy, but not in the messy way like in the past when everything was just messy, full stop. It can just be a little bit chaotic when like an old system is breaking down, that old world is breaking down, that old way you used to relate. It can, and maybe people reacting or responding to your new boundaries or new, but like we said, with the relief that comes afterwards when you feel that more alignment with yourself and that those parts of you that have never felt heard or seen before are starting to feel heard and seen, like, but there is that kind of like rocky part that you move through. But yeah, you're right. It's brings so much more authenticity. Um, so yeah,
Yeah. It is a rocky road, but it is like also very empowering. And I think that's where we go back to the, like you even said, the self-trust. It really makes us realize that we can handle these big emotions and we're not just victims to them kind of erupting when we have no say in when they're going to erupt because we know how to process them like everything, like our food, our food, it needs to be digested. Same thing with our emotions, they just need the space to just be and then they kind of flow through us. So yeah, it's
definitely.
a beautiful, it's amazing actually. It really
It
is.
It really is. And like we were saying earlier with the when you can't see the woods for the trees and you start to have maybe a more expansive experience, it's the same moving through this new kind of emotional expression because like you shared, um you can have empathy, you can have your anger, and you can really feel justified in your experience. But in the past, if I felt like that, it meant someone had to be wrong and bad, and I had to be like right and good. And it was like took a lot of energy to hold that position and to like, but it's like now you can feel more for other people without having to compromise yourself, your own authenticity or your own self-care. And but you can really feel, and it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful in a very profound and tender way to like feel that, because when you can hold that place of compassion for yourself and why you act in certain ways, then you can really hold that for other people and understand other people in a new way. Um, which is so nice. And actually, I've been spending the past month, I think I have spent so much time completely on my own, which has been so nice. And I have not once felt lonely at all. And I really feel it's just from all this work, I feel so much, connection, and I feel connected to true feeling connected to myself. I feel so connected to other people, that kind of alignment that we talk about. Whereas in the past, I felt so desperately lonely. And even I lived in a house with 10 of my best friends, and we used to throw the biggest parties. And I would sometimes feel desperately lonely within myself. And
Mhm.
I was just reflecting on that today. I don't think I've ever spent so much time just really alone in my own juicy energy. And I'm just really enjoying it. But not for a second do I feel disconnected.
Yeah, you've learned your connection to yourself and your own compassion for yourself, which is so amazing through this work. I mean, I think you said it beautifully. You can hold all these emotions and it doesn't have to be like all good or all bad, or it's just, being able to hold the duality of life, I think the sorrows and the joys. And it doesn't have to contradict each other. Just because we might be upset with someone doesn't mean we don't not love them or feel compassion for them. I mean, it's like we can hold both, and we're human. We're going to have anger. And I think anger is such a positive emotion that's just gotten such a bad label,
I
right?
love that. I love that. Yeah, I feel like I had so much shame about being feeling angry, and yeah, it's so beautiful to put it like that. It's a great
Yeah.
emotion, a lot of energy.
Yeah. I mean, we were all born like having valid needs, being, just when we needed, we were hungry, we needed to be fed, when we needed love or cuddling, we got it. There's nothing wrong or bad in that. We all have needs. We all are justified in who we are. Like somehow our messages we've gotten along the way is we've thought we don't have like the right to take up space in the world, you know we have needs and they're real and they're valid, and I think that's what we've forgotten sometimes. And when we have a chronic illness and condition, we've learned to minimize ourselves, and we're learned to wanting to be invisible or diminish our light. And it's like, no, our body is saying no. That's the pain, that's the illness, so
100 million%. It's those, yeah. So powerful. I love everything that you shared, and I'm just so grateful. And it's always really meaningful for me to just have these conversations. It's so validating of my own journey and my own experience as well. So yeah, if there's anything before we finish up, if there's anything final that you'd like to share, I will leave all your information and contacts for people to get in touch with you. But if there's anything you'd like to share before we wrap up.
yeah, I just want to again say thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing your journey. And it's been so uplifting it's always nice to be with people who understand. And I just feel so connected to you as well. And I really appreciate your conversation today. I think if anybody has any questions or comments, I mean, feel free to message me or message you. I think that's one thing I would like to, because obviously this is a short conversation and we weren't able to delve deeper because we could probably have a this whole series of podcasts on, for just our conversation today. So, yeah, so I just want to leave that open for our viewers to contact us.
Definitely. And I know people always want to ask questions about specific symptoms and specific. So do get in contact with Dr. Rita Gupta or myself and or leave a questions in the comments and we can respond as well that way. But do reach out and always ask your questions because it's one aha realization can really be such powerful medicine, like we've been saying. And anyone who's listening, like and subscribe. And if you want to get in touch with me or book a call with me, that is, I'll leave the links for that. And do get in touch with Dr. Rita Gupta, ask her questions also. And yeah, so thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to connecting further with you. And yeah, have a beautiful day.
You too. It's wonderful talking to you.
Let me see. I don't want to end the call. I just want to end the recording here.